Initializing. Recording. Remember we started this? It was like 7 o'clock and we were talking about children and with leashes. Because they were like animals. And then we went to the movies and ate dinner. Watched Adventure Time. And now we're back 5 hours later for the children. So, deductive reasoning, like inductive reasoning, a different octave reasoning. You remember what inductive reasoning was?
Inductive reasoning was
She doesn't
coming to a hypothesis without.
Oh, there you go. Hypothesis testing. You have an idea and you check it yourself. My performance is slow. Isn't that the truth? So the example they gave us was that if you balance an egg, the myth is that it only works, you can only balance it on its end on the spring equinox. So by inductive reasoning, how would you check to see if that hypothesis or conjecture is true? The spring equinox is like the first day of spring. Wait, is it the first day of spring? I don't know what an equinox is. I know it's a day.
So how do you balance it on spring equinox?
Because the way the sun is aligned and gravity is strongest. I don't know, man. It's the first day of spring. So anyways, to answer the question, we can test this by spring equinox. We can test that by checking it on different days ourselves. And you can see that you can balance an egg on its end on any old day, therefore making this conjecture false. Okay. So that's inductive. That's what we did before. Now we're doing deductive reasoning. And where have we heard the word deductive before? Who would use deductive reasoning? And who's a famous detective?
Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes? More like Sherlock my homie. What? Sherlock Holmes? Or a more British Sherlock Holmes? Or an old Sherlock Holmes? You know who's a better detective?
Who?
The best detective ever?
Who?
You know who? Everyone's favorite detective. Batman. What? Why are you laughing? He's a super detective. He doesn't have superpowers. His power? Deductive reasoning. In reality, all Batman is, he's really good at geometry. Yeah. Alright, so what is deductive reasoning, old lady?
Deductive reasoning.
You gotta talk louder than that.
Deductive reasoning is where you come to a hypothesis based on what you've heard from other people or things. Like a review on a website about a movie. If the reviews say it's good and you come to the conclusion, hey, this must be a good movie, then that's deductive reasoning.
Ah, so you're using, what's the word? Starts with an L. Ends with logic.
Logic.
Ah, yes. Logical thinking. So the example they give us for this one is if they say that the Great Wall of China is visible from the moon. Okay? So what if I were to tell you that the Great Wall is barely visible in photographs taken from 180 miles away from Earth? And I also gave you, in case you didn't know, that the moon is 237,000 miles from Earth. So based on that information, would you say that statement is true or false?
False.
False. And it's false because based on the information we know, we can deduce that our hypothesis or our conjecture is false. And how could we have found it to be false using inductive reasoning? We had the same thing. We said, you can see the Great Wall of China from the moon.
If you got on a spaceship and you flew to the moon.
There you go. Alright? You know, I'm tired of seeing this, but it's Batman related, so I'm going to let this one go. Keep calm and call Batman. Ba-bam. Alright. So, a couple things to go with this. That's the basic idea of deductive reasoning. A couple laws we got to talk about. First one, law of detachment. If P then Q is a true statement, and P is true, then Q is true. What? Oh yeah, Tostitos salsa con queso. So let's put a if P then Q statement out here.
Okay.
So let's say if Tostitos salsa con queso is your dip of choice, then you are happy, right? So our P here would be Tostitos con whatever this. Then Q would be you are happy, right? So what? All right. I won't tell anyone what just happened there. Okay, so if this is true, if we say this is a true statement, okay, and anytime P is true now, so anytime we say that,
Tostitos salsa con queso is your dip of choice.
so if that's true, then what also has to be true?
Whoever's eating it becomes happy.
There you go. Okay, so if your original statement is true, and the first part of it is true, then the second part has to be true as well. Okay? So if the given part, which is the whole statement, is true, and your hypothesis is true, then your conclusion always has to be true. Nice and easy. Okay? Our second one, our law of syllogism, says if P then Q and Q then R are both true, then P then R is also true. Alright? So this sort of goes back to algebra, where if we say, let's say x equals 3, right? And then we say 3 equals y. Then we could also say that x equals y. Why am I all sideways? Whatever. Okay. So that's basically what we're saying, but now we can do it with words, right? So let's put some words. We tried this before. We're going to do this better this time, all right? Okay. So let's say our P is, we were talking about cats, right?
If some cats have no tails.
No, we don't want that example. That was a stupid example.
Okay.
So let's say,
if cats have whiskers.
Okay, so P that has whiskers, then we could say it.
Maybe a cat.
Now we need an in between. So let's say it meows. That's something cats do, right? Alright. So, and then we put R is a cat.
Okay.
Now let's see if this works. This might not be the best example, because we're making it about cats. Whatever. So if P then Q. So if it has whiskers, then it meows. Alright, so if that's true, and if Q then R. So if it meows, then it's a cat. If both of those statements are true, Then we can jump from if it has whiskers, then it's a cat. And that's the basic idea. Alright? So, let's do some practice problems with actual examples we didn't make up, and maybe the kids won't hate us so much. Alright? So, does this conclusion use inductive or deductive reasoning? Feel free to pause this and answer it yourself. And I will read it in my magnificent reading voice. And you're going to read the next one. So, at Bell High School, students must take biology before they can take chemistry. Sam is in chemistry, so Marcia, really? Is that a name? Concludes that he has taken biology. So take a second, think about it. Alright. Caitlin says deductive reasoning. Why do you say deductive?
Because it's a known fact that students must take biology before they take chemistry at that school.
There you go. The facts say that's got to be the case, so that's how it works. So it's got to be deductive. Nice and easy. So let's write something down so it seems like I'm working here. Deductive. Oh, here it is again. Let's not do 2 because I feel like we just did this one. Marcia. Alright, number 3. Go for it.
A detective learns that his main suspect was out of town the day of the crime. He concludes that the suspect is innocent.
Alright, inductive or deductive? Deductive.
Inductive.
Inductive? He tested his own hypothesis?
No, it's deductive.
Deductive. Alright, so Batman learns the main suspect was out of town. So he must be innocent.
You should put the cool Joker.
The cool Joker? Heath Ledger. Oh, yeah. All the girls love Heath Ledger. So he's innocent because he was out of town. That is indeed deductive reasoning. Okay. And who was the detective on that case? Batman. Greatest detective of all time. So this is also deductive reasoning. Because while it isn't direct facts, you can assume based on logic, you can say, hey, if you're not in town, how could you have committed the crime in town? Which under most cases is very impossible unless you're the Joker. Because the Joker does what he wants.
He makes plans before he goes.
That's right. Alright, next one. Determine if the conjecture. What's another word for conjecture? Starts with an H. Logisticism? That's not even a word, and it doesn't start with an H.
Oh, H. I don't know.
Starts with.
Hypothesis.
Alright, hypothesis. So remember, our conjecture is just a hypothesis waiting to be tested. So if we say you want to go on a field trip, you must have a signed permission slip. Okay? So this would be. So our P would be. If you want this, then you must have a signed permission slip. I don't know why this is crooked. So here's our Q, and here is our P. So Zola has a signed permission slip. So does she want to go on the field trip?
Of course.
Of course? Can we say that for sure?
No, not for sure. Maybe her parents are forcing her to.
Ah, her parents force her to. What is the problem with this statement?
Because it's saying she wants to go on a field trip,
No,
maybe she can go on a field trip.
no, because it still wants and have a signed permission slip. But what's given to us? What does it tell us?
That she has a signed permission slip.
Which means which part of the statement do we know is true? P or Q?
Q.
Q is true.
Yeah.
But remember our law. What did our law say?
So both have to be true.
No.
So if
But it's not necessarily one is true, the other is true. It's very specific here. It says if P is true, then Q has to be true. This does not work in reverse. Okay? So if Q is true, it doesn't necessarily mean that P is true as well. Because take our Tostitos salsa con queso example, right? Is it possible that you could be happy for reasons other than having Tostitos salsa con queso as your dip of choice?
Yeah.
It's difficult, but possible. Okay? So even if this statement is true, because this statement is true always, if this is your dip of choice, you're happy, right? But you can be happy without having your dip. Alright? So P has to be true for this law of detachment part to be valid, right? So she has her signed permission slip, but like you were saying, her parents could have signed it and forced her to go because they're jerks. This could be like a field trip to the library. I'm just kidding. I know the library is a fun place. Don't hit me. So just because it's signed, just because Q is true, does not mean necessarily that P is true. Okay? How could we have made this true? What would this line need to be?
Zola wants to go on the field trip.
There you go. So if this said Zola wants to go on the field trip, then our conjecture Zola has a signed permission slip would be true.
What if she doesn't?
Then she obviously didn't want to go. Because our statement said that if you want to go, you got to have that permission slip. Alright?
What was that Marseille? Zola is going on the field trip.
This isn't reading class, settle down. We're trying to keep this simple. Okay. Alright, boss? Alright, number 5. Side lengths of the rectangle are 3 feet and 4 feet, and its area is 12 feet. So what's our P here?
P is if the side lengths of a rectangle are 3 feet and 4 feet.
Alright, very good. So that's P. Then, we always look for our then and know it's the other side of that. Then, the area is 12 feet. Okay? And then what else does it give us?
A rectangle has side lengths of 3 and 4. So it has to be true.
So we're saying if P then Q, if this is true and P is true, then through the law of detachment, we have to assume that Q is also true. Alright? Alright. Alright, last one. Last group of ones. Numerous ones going on here. So determine if this is valid by syllogism. So if you fly from Texas to California, you travel from Central to Pacific. Alright? If you travel from Central to Pacific, you gain 2 hours. So our hypothesis or our conjecture is if you fly from Texas to California, you gain 2 hours. Is this a true statement? Can we assume that?
Yes.
Let's America, America, you're made with only 4 colors. How do time zones work? Where does the East Coast cut off?
I don't know.
Is Louisiana East Coast?
Maybe.
I don't know either. Let's guess. If anyone has the correct lines here, I guess we could have Googled it, but whatever. Alright, so Central, Mountain, and Pacific over here. So we started in Texas, and we escaped, because who would want to stay in Texas? We escaped to California. Alright, so we need our P, Q, and R. So P is our first statement. P is in purple. You know why P is purple?
No. Oh,
Purple.
I get it.
Alright. so, So flying from Texas to California is P for purple. You know why Q is red?
No.
Quite honestly, neither do I. So if you do that, then you travel from Central to Pacific. This is R. No, that's Q. I don't know why I said R. Because I don't know my ABCs.
Red is R.
Oh yeah. Too bad we don't have any colors that start with Q. And if we travel from Central to Pacific, so that's Q again, right? Ugh. Then you gain 2 hours. So here's R. I know, right? There's like 3 whole things going on here. So our law said, if P then Q is true, and Q then R is true, then we can jump directly from what to what?
From P to green.
From P to green, yes. So we can go from this first statement to the third statement. So if we fly from Texas to California, based on what we know, then we gain 2 hours, which is exactly what we're testing. So the statement is true. Okay? Go away, America. No one likes you. I'm just kidding. I love America. This is a mess. Stop making fun of me. I want to keep my stuff here. Alright. If a figure is a square, then the figure is a rectangle. If the figure is a square, then it's a parallelogram. So a conjecture is, if it's a parallelogram, then it's a rectangle. False. Why is it false? Well, what's the reason that's based off of our little law we came up with?
Because the middle one. Well, P should be equal to green.
You're just bouncing. It's like P is equal to green, and yellow is a triangle. So
well,
it's
I don't know what the last letter is. I can't.
PQR, alphabetical order. Alright, so if it's a square, then it's a rectangle. Alright? That's P, then Q. You're messing me up. I keep trying to call it R now. Here's the problem with it. You were right in your own unique way. They say if a figure is a square. Well, this goes back to, we can't change what letter this is. If a figure is a square, we called that P. So then our last statement, which is the correct color, that's like the exact same color.
Yeah.
Like seriously, like the book stole my green. So this is R. So what we have here is we have P then Q, and we have P then R. And you know what law talks about this? None of them. Alright, which means you can't tell a whole lot from this. No. So if the figure is parallelogram, then it's a rectangle. We can't say that. Womp womp womp. We could have fixed this if we said if it's a square, then it's a rectangle. If our second statement said if it's a rectangle, then it's a parallelogram. Then we could make the conclusion that if it's a square, it's a parallelogram. Alright. So here we go. Draw a conclusion from the given information. If you leave your car lights on overnight, then your car battery will drain. Have you ever done that? Oh, it's such a pain. Because you get up in the morning, it's always like, oh, I'm running late. I got to get to wherever I'm going. And then you start your car and it won't start because your battery's gone. And you're like, why is my battery gone? And why was my door unlocked and my door was open?
Why is my wallet gone?
Nah. So if you leave it on overnight, your car battery will drain. If your car battery is drained, your car might not start. Alex left his car lights on last night. So what is our conclusion?
Alex doesn't have a right to work.
While that might be true, that's not the conclusion you can make. He might have friends. All right, you jerk. So here's P. He left his car lights on. Q would then be, I'm sure you're saying the battery will drain.
Yes.
And if the battery is drained, so that's Q again, then R would be the car won't start. So based on this, you can jump from P to R. So if he left his cars on last night, then
your car's not going to start.
It will not start. And then what happens? Sad face. You know what we forgot to do? Where was it? Oh yeah. What, you think you can do better? Here, go for it. You want a different color? What color you want? You just stop. Just draw. Interesting. That appears to be an arm. It's an Xbox controller. That's the Y button. It's another Y button.
This is hard.
Interesting. Second flexed arm.
He's crying.
Oh. That looks exactly like what I drew. I can't tell the difference.
That's a big thing.
Alright. So now we can use some deductive reasoning here. So if you see a well-drawn cat, what conjecture can we reach? Who drew it? Me or you?
I did.
You did, because we know the facts that you're the superior artist. So there's your deductive reasoning. If you know enough of this, you too can be Batman. Alright, like, comment, subscribe, all that.